Welcome to the IFM LiveTalk. Thanks for joining us today when we will talk about internal and external influences and factors that put the supply chain under pressure. And of course, we want to talk about also about strategies to overcome those obstacles and to get a more resilient supply chain in the end. And for that, I'm very happy to welcome my guests in the studio. Verena Binz-Mohr, Director, Head of Global Supply Chain at Chemetall. Anna, thank you for being here today. Second is Ungern-Sternberg, Head of Operations at Fraunhofer Institute for Manufacturing, Engineering and Automation, also known as Fraunhofer IPA. Welcome, thank you. And last but not least, Björn Dunkel, Managing Director, IFM Business Solutions GmbH. Welcome.
Hello.
So one last thing before we start, feel free to ask your questions and share your experience about your supply chain topics, and we will discuss them here in the studio. Thank you. So, Roman, let's start with your scientific perspective. What are, from your point of view, the pain points that put supply chain at risk and really under pressure?
I think the interesting thing about a supply chain is it's a perfect example of a complex adaptive system. Why complex adaptive? You have people and technology working together, and they can work together in a good way, and they can also work in a suboptimal way together. I think the perfect way in working together is when people and technology find new solutions to new problems. Something happens, people get creative ideas. I think the bad part about it is that people have their own minds, their own goals, and not always the goal of every individual is the goal of the whole supply chain. I optimize for myself in a local warehouse, but this is not perfect for everybody. So this would be the weakness, but working together is the challenging and the fun.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned already maybe how to overcome these bad behaviors, but just to have it as a core clue, how can companies or what can companies do to improve the resilience of their supply chain?
Of course, there are many things, but in brief, I say this is ABC. So A is have an alternative ready. I always think about firefighters and how they operate. They don't know the situation, something happens, they always have a plan B. So have A, the alternative ready. B, ideally there is some buffer. And I'm not talking about stock levels, you just pile up stock, but having a timely delay between the incident and some time to react. You see it, have fire-proven walls, for example, 30 minutes, 90 minutes to react on it. And C would be communications. So always keep in touch with everybody in the supply chain. And when you see something early, deliver the notice to everybody in the supply chain.
Anna, do you agree with this ABC?
Definitely agree to A and B, but for me, key is C, the communication. And then for sure, in terms of transparency. So if you, for example, have customers who give you a very early heads up, you can react definitely faster. So for me, companies who have already transparency are one step ahead.
Yeah, okay. So where do you see the biggest challenges for becoming more resilient externally and internally?
Externally, definitely the continuous uncertainty, what we have right now in the economics. And internally, it's more the silos processes we have in the most companies, and also a diverse tool and system landscape. If you have such a complex system landscape, you will have slowed decision-making possibilities, because definitely you will always like having tools which are not connecting and communicating with each other.
So have you already experienced it at your own company, or and how did you overcome this?
So we defined several years ago, it should be around Corona times, to have one single point of truth. And for us, it's the MRP or the SAP system, and there it comes to the conclusion that we need a completely end-to-end process where you have all the dots connected between supply chain, operations, procurement, and strategy to create transparency, what I have already said, because only if you have the complete transparency, you can react faster. Like the IFM solutions, for example, where you have everything together in one system.
Good point.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, is this, Björn, no, it's your word now. Is it what software can do? Break up the silos, or what can you promise your customers? How can your software help overcome those issues we've already mentioned?
So we do not promise miracles, of course, but we promise a kind of transparency, what is coming out of the single point of truth, like you already mentioned out. And we would like to have it on a way that we do not think in silos. We would like to see the whole supply chain end to end. And the software himself is not able to solve structural supply chain issues, but it helps to see where is the most important issues and where do I have to fix it first to come from a silo perspective in an end-to-end supply chain perspective, which starts on the demand planning side and ends in the delivering side on the customer. Because what we all want is, with less stress and less troubleshooting, to have a high service level for our customers.
So you offer a better understanding about across all the whole supply chain.
Right.
Perfect. So you not only focus on the horizontal perspective, but also on the vertical perspective of the supply chain, which means you start from the sensor at the plants. Why do you do that?
The idea is that we get at the end a digital supply chain. Digital is not only having all the informations in the SAP system. We need to combine the information we have on the shop floor, and we would like to have that in the SAP world as well. Therefore, we delivered and developed a solution. It's called shop floor integration, and we can get the data coming out of the shop floor area, coming out of a PLC or from a single sensor. And if you look in the shop floor area, you see that nearly everything is already digital. All the little sensors, all the PLC already deliver data on a digital way. 90% of that data are not used. Only 10% are used for the automatic systems running in the shop floor area. The idea of digital supply chain is really to make it happen that we get information out of that data, and the most relevant information in real time transformed in an SAP information. And confirmation and order, where is the location, where is the stock located, in which storage location, is it moving, is it still standing there, to get really a clear picture of the reality in real time. That is the idea between horizontal and the vertical.
I'm smiling because everybody's talking about digitalization and if it brings transparency, but you get only transparency if you put your data in a structured way. And that's exactly what Björn was explaining, that you need the data in a structured way. Unless you don't do this, all the massive data will create more unclarity instead of clarity.
Yeah, that would be my question. So have you already experienced it, some kind of information overload, or have you already...
In the beginning, when we defined our single point of truth, we had this. And it took a couple of months and years now to find a defined structure for us how to handle such data we have now available.
Yeah. And how did you do that?
By defining processes along our supply chain, internal supply chain, and also by creating KPIs for sure, because otherwise, if you don't bundle the information and data to one straight KPI, you cannot improve or you cannot measure your improvement.
Okay. Omar, maybe from your point of view, when we have all this technology and digitalization, we have amounts of data, would you say that this approach, which Björn already showed us, is mature enough to establish an early warning system for the supply chain?
First of all, I totally agree on this master data thing. It's the most boring thing you have to do, but if you don't do it, all the rest is not feasible, and AI is creating a mess. Regarding your other question, I think there's a set of systems in a factory where it really works well with the early warning systems. For example, you have a machine, you have vision control on the machine, you connect it with IFM sensors, for example, and then plug in the maintenance workbook of the people. And in that system, you really can get an early warning system. Take predictions, take really precise sensor data on a physical system. In a supply chain, it's much more complicated. When people get involved and when politics gets involved, it's more delicate, and I would say maybe.
So what do you think would be needed to have an early warning system for supply chain, or is it possible at all?
I think it's possible when you have trust among the partners in the supply chain, when you trust each other that the information is not abused. And I think you mentioned quite good how the relation with your customer is working well. The customer entrusts the suppliers to get the information, not misuse it, and run the supply chain accordingly. So having trust in supply chain, trusting the partners, then it also gets in a more political environment. Okay.
Björn, do your customers ask for these early warning systems, or are there other exaggerated expectations that you have to cook down a bit?
So it is not that the customer is asking for an early warning system. He is asking for what should we do to get out of that situation, that we do only troubleshooting, that we have missing parts on the one side and we have overcapacity on the other side. And we would like to understand the impacts on the different processes in our internal end-to-end supply chain. And supply chain excellence is exactly doing that. By an idea of process mining, we do a deep dive in the digital data which was already created by SAP only by working with SAP. And we have an internal intelligence which understands the different data and makes out of that different data an indicator how good is your supply chain process. And not only the silo thing, how good is your demand process, how good is your manufacturing process, your procurement process, and the inventory process. We would like to balance that to let's say, a kind of a lean internal supply chain process. And even based on the data we already have with SAP, this is really easy because everything is already there. But like you already mentioned out, in that case that I end on my system side and I have to handle data out of the system, so from the suppliers, from my customers, from the world around, that is the most critical thing, because everything what is in my ecosystem is really easy to use and really easy to work with, and understand that sometimes it is better to do an automatically putting than a human is doing a master data setting or something like that. That is really easy. But the perspective from the customer sometimes is, okay, if I have already the clear picture, what is the next step, and I would like to have a system and a software which is doing that everything completely automatically, and that is where the reality looks much more different, right?
Yeah. It's theory and reality. Do you have specific examples where your software already helped customers to react faster or better?
Of course. When we come to a customer, sometimes it is we are not good on the inventory side. We have much too high inventory, but we have also not a pure service level. I would like to have a functionality which helps me out to be better on the inventory side. And by having that idea on do not think in silos, please think in the total supply chain, we identified that it is coming from a bad demand process. If you do not have a good demand and bring everything inside of the system what is around, a good demand can help me out to get a stable inventory. You already said don't buffer your problems with inventory. If I already know that a problem will come up and a good inventory is helping me out to buffer that, that is already pretty good. But the result at the end, if I do not think in the horizontal supply chain end to end, I only think on the inventory, for example, I only have the pill for the hurts. I do not really work on the process. And that is what we do. We make clear that an end-to-end view on the supply chain is more is needed, and you need to have really the understanding that if I draw on that screw, that have an impact on the other side, and that is what really supply chain excellence is delivering to the customer, to understand the behaviors between, and then to work on the right things, let's say.
Okay, understanding behavior is maybe a good point. Maybe we have to, or we can talk about the usage of artificial intelligence. Anna, do you see AI as hype or as a help at that moment?
Oh, that's a tricky one. For me personally, definitely right now a help, but you really need to define the right purpose where you use it, and you have to use it wisely. Otherwise, it's not a one-size-fits-all and a magic solution. Yeah. Otherwise, like with the transparency, with the data, where you create more uncertainty than clarification, AI can also create a lot of trouble. Yeah. You really have to take care that you value what the AI is creating for you, because right now it can come out with a rubber bullshit solution out of it. Yeah.
Roman, how do you see the use of AI, especially when it comes to the plausibility of these answers and information you get there?
When we talk about AI, we usually talk about generative AI, ChatGPT and co. But let's go to production. Most of the problems are optimization problems where we use way other AI solutions. So optimizing the parameters on a machine with 50 different knobs is a completely different problem. And we see that people can do it with 30 years of experience. You can perfectly fine-tune your machine. But having AI as a support, and when these people retire, you need somebody to optimize these parameters. People need 30 years experience, the AI can learn it. And in that way, AI really helps getting the next notch of quality out of a machine, for example. Completely different topic. And I think the second question you ask is about the reliability and explainability of AI. We have a huge research team only talking about explainable AI. Why is it so important? If you do 5 million of scrap or wrong paint or something, is a much bigger effect than the wrong prompt in ChatGPT. So definitely a big topic.
But do you see it at AI at the beginning in industry, or do you see they are already on track? Or how would you say, how deep is AI used already in industries?
I think we are in the use case phase right now. People are experimenting with things, but it's not in operations, and it's definitely not in the end-to-end process. It's a spot somewhere, but in front and behind it, there are people trying to fix everything around. But it definitely will stay, and in all things that are boring and cumbersome, it will stay. Definitely.
Okay. Björn, how are your plans with AI? What do you try to improve with AI? Do you think about AI at software at all?
Of course. And we have different areas where we think about and where we already work with AI as well. So we have an AI-based optimization tool. It's called Fox, that is able to do an optimized production plan over a whole plan. But the data these Fox needs to do that on a good way, let's say, are the key. And what we see is even the master data which are located in SAP for the production. Sometimes it's not in the right field. It's more in the head and in the stomach of the people who are working there. But if you have that transparency of where's the lack of master data. You could work on that, and then you get again a good result, of course, in the production planning area as well. We do AI in the area of calculating safety stock. We try to learn out of the system, out of the past, where was a safety stock really good, and what was the benefits out of that, and then we try to involve AI in calculating safety stocks for stock keeping units, especially for the special situation we find by the customer. So it's always an individual way to come to the same result at the end. And what I see that the customer is expecting from an AI is sometimes that is the magic tool and that is solving all my problems. And sometimes I get questioned where a customer would like to use AI, and I said, what is the reason to use this? Is there really a problem for you? What is the business case behind that? What is the way you would like to optimize at the end? Is that something that I could measure in KPIs? Because if I'm not able to measure that in KPIs, how is that helping me at the end? That is the challenge we have.
Björn, are you also working on AI AI in terms of master data, because all three of us agree that master data are the key and the foundation for everything what comes on top in the supply chain. Is there any
we have an existing functionality that's called Rule Workbench, but that is like it is in the name, it's a rule. I set a couple of rules, and that is running through the systems, getting all that data which needs to come to that rules, and then we are able to build a master data, and that is automatically written in the right table. But the next thing we would like to have, it's a kind of master data management tool, which is helping us out to identify where are the gaps in master data, and then not only rule-based, then really with a learning system, what was the reason to get that, and what is the way to get a pure master data set automatically, to come faster to a good result. And the next thing we're working on is explainable AI. I need to have a logic and a tool or a setting that the user is able to understand the complexity of the results coming out of an artificial intelligence. And that is yet, I think, the most critical and the most interesting thing to make it happen, that everyone is trusting in the solution.
Yeah, and this is a good point, as we have also an external question. How can I trust the result in the results which are given by the AI tools if we know that sometimes AI tells fairy tales? So, question again to you, or is the answer in perfectly delivered data?
But this is the foundation, as I would say.
Foundation, yeah.
We've seen some research projects that if the AI gives the optimal solution, but you cannot follow through and not make it plausible, people will not accept. So what we see is if you give a good solution where people can follow and accept it, it's much more worthy going that way. Instead of having a perfect solution nobody can understand, you give a very solid solution where people can cross-check and cross-reference with their belly feeling. Another question was similar.
Yeah, maybe we can see that again. But before that, as you said, it's all about data. But I think it's the same as when we use ChatGPT or something. The worse your input is, the worse the output is. And if you have a good, clear data pool, maybe the answers of AI is then better.
I think this is the link also to the last question. How can we engage employees?
Yeah.
Give them a vision why they want to go there. If I do some online shopping, it's a perfectly digital process. I don't have to do anything. It's a one click. I can track my package. I can postpone it. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
In a B2B world, we are so far away from that. And we should get closer to a B2C way of thinking.
Yeah.
They do digital, and it would be impossible to do by humans.
Yeah. I think the question was how can we react if we have employees that are critical against digitalization? Anna, maybe it's also a good question for you.
Yeah, so when we write our digital roadmap for the next 5 years, we exactly ask ourselves this question, and we decided to set up a very broad program for change management. So we defined on each and every leadership level people who are our digitalization ambassadors and also other change ambassadors. And we stuffed them with very intense trainings on change management to tell them and to give them tools on hand how to bring the people through the 4 rooms of change management to make them aware that digitalization will not go away. You can stay in the denial room, and there's always an exit option, but it's better to go to the confusion and the other rooms to finally accept the new normal.
Yeah. Björn, how do you experience the criticism of digitalization, or do you have those customers?
Yes, of course. Even in a project, if we would like to come to an automatically calculated production plan, what was made by a human before? Yeah? This is always the question, what is my job at the end if a machine is doing my job? And what we can really promise is we need you. We need your experience to come to a result which is able to be calculated on an AI, and we need you at the end to control that. Yeah? We need your understanding of that process, which is not coming out of the box. Means at the end, we do not talk about the AI will cost me my job. Perhaps the AI will save your job. because you need to be much faster in all your decisions, and you need to be more accurate, more fine and more right in your way of working, and that is helping out to make it understand it is not your enemy. Yeah? It is helping you out really, and it is saving jobs at the end. Yeah? But the jobs will be different. That's also.
Okay, yeah, that's. I think the same question with the same answer. How do you deal with employees who resist the use of AI? But I think it's the same as the use of digitalization.
And people are sometimes afraid, but we see many benefits in just showing good examples. We had a learning factory or learning tour at our institute, 50 different companies. They showed their use cases. They took out their phones and showed what they are doing. And with this spark and energy and motivation, it was much easier to motivate people. What tool are you using? This one. Okay, give me a link, and then they're much more engaged and try it out instead of only with fear. I think also showing what is possible and what painful things are going away.
Yeah. As we are already some kind of having a look into the future with AI now starting, not going away anymore. So Roman, what would you advise companies to focus on in the coming years, with all in the background with what all we discussed today?
I would sum it up, start with the boring master data thing and how to spot a weak spot there. Look at your Excel tables, all the Excel tables you have. And if you want to go end to end, there shouldn't be Excel in between that. So look at your Excel tables and get rid of them. And when get rid of them, your process is getting smoother.
Okay, perfect. So Anna, what would you currently like to see, where would you like to see more technological support? Or you think it's all good, we are ready for the future?
No, we aren't. So definitely the master data topic. I would like to have a kind of self-healing master data tool, which is learning and adapting and changing the master data by itself to keep that out of the back of the people. And then something what I really would like to have support on is scenario solutions, or solution scenario simulations, so that we'll have a tool which can simulate what can come up. Because if you are already simulating something or know where your decision could end up, it's easier to make a decision.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Björn, what do you consider is the biggest success factor in the future supply chain from your point of view?
Transparency. You need to have a really clear picture of what is happening, what is going on, and we all know that the world is changing very fast, and I need to have transparency, I need to have efficiency, otherwise we get in problem in Europe, even in Germany with our productions, and we need to have an open mind for all these new technology, but be able to use that on the right way means also you need to look where is it really beneficial to use all that new technology, and where is it helpful for my company, where it's helpful for my personality, and that is something will help us out to get really at the end that transparency, and at the end of everything the chance to get a supply chain which is really resilient.
Okay, perfect. So half an hour is already gone. It was really fast. Thank you all for being here today. It was really interesting, and I hope you also enjoyed this conversation. I hope you get some good insights, and I hope we see us next time again. Until then, take care and goodbye.